Hello and welcome back to Mad Maz Reviews. Today we're going to be discussing the top 5 movies that failed to deliver. The first on my list is the movie Battleship. It was quite honestly a really big waste of space in the cinematic world. It sucked from beginning to end, and I really didn't have many high expectations for the movie going in because it really seemed like a crappy movie from beginning to end. Rihanna didn't help that movie. Her acting was extremely poor, and I thought it was just a joke to have her in it. She really doesn't deserve to be on screen at all, especially with some of the talent they had in that movie. It was wasted. Liam Neeson was in that movie for about 20 whole minutes, and it was a waste of space. It really sucked, and honestly, I think that Michael Bay might have made the film because he had some leftover soundtracks and leftover a special effects budget from Transformers and wanted to show some of his stuff, and it really just kind of felt like an out-of-place Transformers movie or Transformers meets Battleship. It really had nothing to do with the game. The movie sucked, which brings us next to Fantastic Four. Also a load of garbage, if not more so than Battleship. They had some incredible acting talent in that movie. They had Mark Wahlberg, and who I know as Stainer. I don't remember his name, but he also played Fred from Big Hero 6. You might remember him. I'm going to put a picture on the screen here in a second. But they really wasted his character in particular. He was kind of the humor of the group, and they killed him off so quickly in that movie. It was such a waste of space. And then Mark Wahlberg really didn't do much in this movie except breathe heavy. If you've ever seen his version of Planet of the Apes, it was kind of like that. Every scene that he was in, it was heavy breathing and he was out of breath. And they tried to, instead of bringing in a hot chick in as a love interest for the main character, they tried to add a dynamic with her and her boyfriend, and Mark Wahlberg not liking her boyfriend. It didn't do much for the movie for me. It made their characters more or less annoying. And the movie was extremely long and dense, and at one point there were Transformer dinosaurs somewhere in there. I don't really get how those play in, and if you look towards the end of the film, when they let go of those dinosaurs in the battle, they just go off grazing somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where they go, but I really hope they didn't go and terrorize the city, because they didn't really seem like they were all that put together and all that, they didn't have a strong mental capacity. Basically, Optimus Prime had to beat them into submission, which is very out of character for him. He's very in the older films he was very nice, very kind to everyone. In this movie, he seems like he's tired of Michael Bay and Michael Bay's universe that he's made up, to the point where he rocket boots away at the end of the movie, which is something you've never seen him do. I really didn't like the film. It was extremely boring from beginning to end, and it was extremely long. They could have shaved probably an hour off of this film, and it would have been a slightly better film, but it still would have sucked. Age of Adaline was another movie that I was really disappointed with. Not many people went to go see this movie, and for good reason. The content of the story wasn't going to reach a wide audience, and it had the danger of being very boring. Blake Lively played Adeline Bowman, who by some crazy accident is able to not age anymore, and she's gone through her entire life watching her daughter grow old and everyone around her dying. It's an incredibly interesting story that I would have loved to see taken on from many different angles, but they really chose to make Blake Lively's character a very one-dimensional character. And not to mention the fact that there were some mysterious FBI agents that were trying to kidnap her in the beginning of the movie. So that's why she goes on the run her entire life and is never able to find love. But then you never see them again. So they never really seemed like a real threat. There was never really any real conflict there, at least in my point of view. And the best thing about this movie, honestly, was Harrison Ford's character, who brought in a stellar performance. And watching him kind of have to battle having a family and having a loving wife and loving them, but also still having these kind of latent and weird feelings for his old love that he met in World War II, that basically shaped his entire life as he knows it today. It's very interesting to see him kind of struggle with that. And I thought it was a very, very interesting plot, but they really didn't take it anywhere. Blake Lively had a very flat performance. She's very unemotional, which she is in most movies. I was really hoping that she would kind of branch out in this role and kind of show some different range of emotions, but she really didn't. So I could take her or leave her rendition of Adeline Bowman. Honestly, you throw Kristen Stewart in there, it's probably the same movie. Like Age of Adaline, Transcendence could have also been a good film. It starred Johnny Depp as a person who's trying to discover how to make an artificial intelligence, and upon a near-death accident, he's implanted into this computer and becomes the sort of first AI out there in the world. And he decides to try to fix everything that's in the world as far as like medical technology. You actually see him fix somebody's eyesight. They were completely blind, and he helps people kind of get rid of their ailments, their injuries. He almost becomes like a messiah of sorts in the movie, and that was a very interesting part of the film. But they really tried to get a little too heavy-handed with the meaning of the story and the philosophy around Johnny Depp's character, and kind of the extent of how people don't really trust machines. Even if what they're doing may seem evil at first, they really might have the best intentions at the end. And the cool part about the film, I will give them in the ending, is that Johnny Depp's character is the enemy throughout the film, but at the end of the movie, he's actually vindicated as what he was doing was the right thing to do, and it was humanity's fault for trying to stop him and not trying to realize what potential he had. And at the end of the movie, and at the beginning technically, the world is in turmoil, there's no technology, they're basically back in the Stone Age. The issues that I had with this film weren't issues of plot, it was issues of storytelling. It was a very long, slow film that was super dialogue heavy, and even the action sequences kind of seemed out of place with that style of shooting that they did. It could have been a really, really good movie, and for some parts, if you take this movie and you break it up into little bits and watch it as a short story, it's actually not a bad film. In fact, if it was actually written in like an anthology rather than seeing on screen, it might have been a very interesting book rather. So honestly, I can't fault the plot. I can't fault the story. My biggest issue again was it was a little heavy-handed with some of the tactics he chose to tell the story, and I thought they could have executed on some elements a little better to make the movie more interesting. Overall, Johnny Depp's character, I mean, he was playing like a sentient machine, android if you will, that was emotionless and it was all logical. So his flat performance was supposed to be there. He's meant to be cold, but it really wasn't a role that I liked him in all that much. If you watch movies on a daily basis, you're probably going to realize that the newest Fantastic Four film was the biggest piece of crap to hit theaters in 2015. It was an incredible disappointment. It was something that had some potential that it could have had given the cast. They had Kate Mara, who was incredible in House of Cards. They had, I honestly forget his name, but he played in Whiplash. He did a really good job in that. And then you have Michael B. Jordan, who was in Friday Night Lights, the TV series, and he was in Fruitvale Station, which was award-winning. He's a good actor. He was also in Chronicle. I thought Chronicle was a very good film, which I'll get into in a minute. Even Jamie Bell, the only movie I've ever really seen him in was Jumper, starring Hayden Christensen, where he could basically teleport, and Jamie Bell's character is another character who can teleport as well. He was probably the only bright spot of that film, so I was actually looking forward to seeing him as the Thing in this movie, but it was very disappointing, and the reason for that is how they chose to tell the story, sort of like Transcendence, where they could have told it a different way and it would have made it a lot more interesting. Fantastic Four tried to build relationships with characters throughout the movie, and what they would do is they'd give you hints at a relationship, and then at the moment when they could have done something interesting with that relationship, they time skip to another year or to another decade or whatever, and it makes you have to, as an audience member, fill in those gaps and try to kind of make up your own story as to what could have happened during that time. So take, for instance, keep in mind it's a superhero movie, so take, for instance, the fact that when they get their powers, they time skip to another year. That's one of the best parts of superhero movies, is watching people get their powers and learning how they control them. What they did was skip an entire year as opposed to showing you how you get their powers, and then cut back to them doing a couple cool things with their powers, and that's about it. And all of a sudden they have to be a team again, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. But that's basically how the entire movie goes. The moment anything cool can happen or any sort of character development can happen, they time skip over it and gloss over it. And you really don't get a good sense of the characters throughout the film. And their acting was very flat to me, particularly Kate Mara's. I'm not sure if this is just something she does in films, but she is like this in House of Cards, where she really doesn't emote a whole lot. She's very stone-faced. They tried to give her character a little bit of depth and intelligence, but I didn't really see how she fit with the entire cast. The whole film was very disappointing to me. Dr. Doom was atrocious. His costume, his character, there was nothing likable about it. And the worst part is they killed him at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, I do apologize, but they did kill him at the end of this film. And I don't understand why. That's their main villain in the Fantastic Four universe, and the fact that they're killing him, you're basically killing off your entire franchise which I'm okay with because this movie was horrible. Please, if you haven't seen it, don't go see it. It is terrible. Sorry, just don't, please. And that's really it for the movies that failed to deliver for me. Some of them are a little older than others, but overall, these are just movies that I thought were extremely disappointing. If you have any other movies that you really hated or kind of went into and thought they were going to be fantastic and they really didn't deliver, please let me know in the comments below, and remember to like this video. You can also get more information from our reviews and other thoughts on movies at madmazreviews.com, where we have a lot more content.